The aggressive actions of Russia in Eastern Europe have reached a point where they are simply unacceptable. The countries bordering the Baltic Sea and Scandinavia have recently prepared themselves for a significant and devastating response against any further Russian aggression. Yet it appears that these combined efforts have failed to deter the aggressive policies and military operations of Russia's president, Vladimir Putin. His policies seem to be intensifying, perhaps based on his assessment of Western resolve. It appeared that numerous unwelcome activities were developing from the Baltic region to the Arctic, from Eastern Europe extending toward the Mediterranean. Vladimir Putin may have been even banking on his positive rapport with Donald Trump, but the actions of Trump following his presidency became a major hurdle for Putin. The statements uttered by Trump again captured the attention of the world stage. This time, his primary target was Putin directly. Within the first 24 hours of his term, Trump firmly demanded Putin to withdraw from Ukraine. He publicly announced this on his official social media platform, cautioning Putin to broker an agreement immediately to end the war in Ukraine, otherwise facing severe consequences. However, whether Trump's stance can make Russia cease military operations in Ukraine, and if Putin would alter his strategic plans, remains to be observed. Following this sharp declaration, Donald Trump, the U.S. president, threatened immense tariffs and sanctions against Russian products if Vladimir Putin fails to secure a deal to end the war in Ukraine. Donald Trump issued a grave warning to Russian dictator Vladimir Putin: "Make peace, or I will devastate your economy." The U.S. president made some fresh statements that bring up some doubts about his connection with the Russian president, stating, "Deal now and put an end to this senseless conflict. The matter will only worsen if we fail to make an agreement soon. I will have no other option but to put into effect very high taxation rates, tariffs, and penalties on every item that Russia sells to the United States," Trump said in a social media post addressed to the Russian president. "We can accomplish this task through easy means or by difficult ones, and the easy method is always the better choice," Trump asserted. There are primarily two motivations behind this harsh declaration. The initial reason is Trump's favorability in U.S. national politics concerning the Ukraine issue. The second reason is to emphasize that the patience of the Western alliance with Russia is growing thin. Also, just when Trump assumed office, both Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin held a phone call. The two leaders announced that they would strengthen their ties, but this move conflicts with Trump's tough stance on Russia. On the other hand, some individuals interpret this move as an effort by Trump to portray himself as an envoy of peace, while others see it as a political tactic to voice his discontent concerning the protracted war, which began in 2022. What could it possibly mean that Trump, who previously created the impression that he was on good terms with Vladimir Putin, and was even considered in the Western media as likely to become closer with Russia, would issue this warning? Will it undermine the plans of Putin in Moscow, or is it simply a political tactic? I do not want to destroy Russia, but if it is necessary for the purpose of ending the war in Ukraine, I will, Trump stated, threatening Vladimir Putin with actions that would damage Russia's economy. "The economy is your lifeblood, and if you don't stop, I will," Trump told the Kremlin, according to sources such as Politico and CNBC. This aligns with reports where he stated, "You're ruining Russia, Putin. Russia is destroying itself, and you are taking your country backwards by carrying on with this war," Trump contended. At this moment, the subsequent question comes into the forefront. Why is Trump using such harsh sanctions now, when he was previously known as a leader with positive relations with Putin? A likely explanation could be that Trump intends to present the image of "I am tough too. I am not submitting to Russia," as he gains power in the U.S. political arena. There are likewise those who criticize the Biden administration for its backing of Ukraine. But with this assertion, Trump is able to send the message to his voters: "If I were in charge, I would have resolved this issue much more rapidly," an approach that would please everyone, being both peaceful and firm towards Putin. It has been reported that the Kremlin takes this as a sign that the new U.S. administration wants to intensify the pressure on the Ukraine matter. Based on such reports, in a phone call with Xi Jinping, Putin possibly stated that U.S. threats of penalties are not new, but Trump's diplomatic and impolite tone shows that the pressure is growing. The presidents of Russia and China, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, had a telephone conversation after Donald Trump's inauguration. After all, Trump has openly said that if I take office again, I will put in place a framework in which Russia will feel in peril. Simultaneously, the bond between Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin is also in doubt since Trump's inauguration. She spoke to Putin over the phone and declared that their relations have strengthened. Some view this call as an attempt to intimidate the US, while others assert that Beijing is attempting to obtain economic and strategic advantages by remaining close with Russia. On the other hand, there are also rumors that she refused to greet Putin, or that she is blowing cold winds. So, the Russia-China alliance lacks consistency. Nevertheless, the Kremlin will deliver a message that you are unable to isolate us. We have China on our side. But can Trump actually isolate Russia to the level that its economy is devastated? Or is this simply a bluff for taking a stance in the global arena? Let us take a look at the substance of Trump's penalties move. It could possibly take the shape of higher tariffs on Russian energy products, new asset freezes on Russian oligarchs, and perhaps even actions to stop trade with Russia completely. Naturally, such sanctions would have repercussions for the global economy. One might ask, the US and Europe have already enforced far-reaching sanctions. What additional measures could Trump do? The answer might be a complete restriction of access to the dollar, removing Russian state-owned banks from the international system, and tough measures in shipping and logistics. Trump may be reserving these as his great trump card. A source in close proximity to the Kremlin might have said Trump says stop the ridiculous war in Ukraine. But what is ridiculous is that he believes the US will strangle Russia with penalties. Russia has previously stated that they are creating a plan for economic resilience, diverting energy to Asia, developing SWIFT, and using alternative systems to the dollar. But it is also a reality that ever since the Ukraine conflict commenced, the economy of Russia has been facing serious hardship. The ruble has fluctuated, foreign investment has left the country, and the importation of high-tech items has been blocked. So, even if Russia cannot be fully isolated, it would be too optimistic to declare that Trump's penalties would have no consequences. Still, harsher penalties against Russia could signify volatility in commodity markets, higher energy costs, and fresh disruptions in global supply chains. In addition to this scenario, the question of what concessions Trump could be presenting to Putin, either directly or indirectly, is also in the spotlight. In a peace deal situation, Russia's withdrawal from Ukraine or holding onto a part of its territory, Ukraine refraining from joining NATO, or equivalent concessions are being discussed. Make a deal now, or you will face higher taxes and tariffs, Trump states. In reality, this could ignite a discussion within Ukraine regarding whether Ukraine should give up its territory. But the Kyiv administration states we will not give up even a small piece of land. Another dimension is, can Trump actually take it this far? Some experts draw attention to how difficult it would be to impose extensive trade sanctions without the agreement of the US Congress. But Trump likewise used loopholes in his prior administration to impose tariffs, increase taxes, and even start a trade war. Hence, it is logical to ask if Trump will sidestep the congressional hurdle. The response could be that if Trump is determined and acts on national security grounds, he has sufficient room for maneuvering. This would create alarm for the Russian economy. Putin has not yet responded directly to these declarations. A Kremlin spokesperson declared that we will observe the approach of the new US administration. We have faced sanctions previously, which does not frighten us. However, Russian media stated Trump may take a different attitude than the Biden administration, even though he is facing questions within the country. Perhaps this is only a bargaining approach. After all, the cliché "Putin loves Trump" has been talked about since the 2016 election. At this moment, the question if Trump has turned against Putin is also on the minds of many. It seems that the best way to summarize this situation is, Trump is not pleased with the continuation of the Ukraine conflict. He has a "I will end it in one day" rhetoric. In this situation, he states if Putin does not put a stop to the war, I will overwhelm Russia with severe sanctions. At the same time, he is sending a message to US voters, I am the strong leader who will bring peace. On the other hand, Putin wishes to meet with Xi Jinping to state Russia is not alone. China is with us. But Xi's position is not clear. Perhaps the claims that he refused to waive indicate that Beijing is not fully embracing Russia. It is unknown whether all these developments will benefit or hurt Ukraine. The question is, how will Ukraine react to these assertions? Probably the Kiev administration will reiterate the message that pressure on Russia is always a positive thing, but no one should anticipate us giving up any of our territory. There is worry in Ukraine that Trump might offer some territories to Russia for the purpose of making a deal. The Zelensky team states we will resolve everything through diplomacy, but our territorial integrity is a red line. The opposition in Russia, on the other hand, contends that this war must stop, and Trump's penalties may force the Kremlin to come to the table. Who knows, perhaps this pressure from within will reduce Putin's maneuvering. However, the Putin regime can feed the external enemy narrative and unify the population. In other words, Trump's exit could become a propaganda resource for the Kremlin's look. The West is trying to attack us again. As a final point, Trump threatened Putin with sanctions if he does not end the war in Ukraine. As surprising as it might appear, this aligns with Trump's stated philosophy of America first and using tariffs on everyone if needed. This time, targeting Russia indicates that patience concerning the conflict in Ukraine is expiring, and Trump will use a distinct diplomatic strategy on the global platform. For Putin, it signifies a new problem, because Europe and the Biden administration are already deploying sanctions, and now Trump is applying the same, or even more aggressive tactics. Trump is threatening Putin with an economic end, and stating, "Sit at the table, or I will resolve the issue." Of course, it remains uncertain if these words will go further than rhetoric and will actually be put into practice. However, in global politics, even such strong statements have the potential to change the balance of power. How permanent Russia's shift toward China is, and how sincere is the phone call between Xi and Putin will shape this situation. And naturally, the military actions in the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine will also play a role. For the time being, with Trump's warning, the pressure on the Kremlin is likely to increase politically and economically. Perhaps Putin will take a new approach, stating Trump's sanctions are on the way, or he could choose to escalate with the logic that, if we win the war rapidly, there will be no need for Trump. The only thing that is clear is that the Ukraine war will not end without difficulty. To summarize, Trump's warning to Putin to end the war or face penalties is not simply a headline. There are aspects of a bigger situation behind it, such as domestic political rivalries in the US, the international standing of Russia, the role of China, and the fate of Ukraine. This move may be a communication to Russia that sanctions will increase enormously, therefore backing the Kremlin into a corner. Still, only time will show what the consequences will be. Who knows, maybe in the end, Putin will disregard Trump's offer to make a deal now and choose to continue the war. Perhaps there are those who hope that the political change in the US will lead to a new compromise with Russia. However, Trump's harsh stance begs the question, is there no expected détente? It appears that the Ukraine matter cannot be ignored in the Trump-Putin situation. In the coming weeks, how will Russia respond to this threat? How will the collaboration between Xi and Putin be affected by these developments? What course will the war in Ukraine take? All these questions will continue to be discussed in the global arena. At the moment, what is apparent is that Trump has played the "your game is over. You either withdraw, or I will destroy your economy" card to Putin. This reduces the Kremlin's room for maneuvering and restarts the debate on where is the path out of the Ukraine war for Russia. With Trump's outburst and Trump's restraint, it appears that the world has once again entered into a period in which history is speeding up. However, it would be a mistake to simplify the circumstances as if Putin would immediately back down just because Trump stated so. There are multifaceted dynamics, such as Moscow's withdrawal from the conflict, Xi's support, domestic politics in Russia, and the determination of Ukraine. Ultimately, Trump's caution to Putin "stop the war, or I will enforce penalties," is a development that will produce effects in the global arena. While Russia is attempting to decide if this is a bluff or real, Europe is wondering about the impact on energy and security. Ukraine, on the other hand, is on high alert, worrying if they will be sold out in a deal. So, what are your thoughts? Will Trump really put Putin in a difficult position, or will Putin ignore these dangers and continue ahead? Will the economy of Europe suffer if it joins such a wave of severe sanctions? Or is this the perfect moment to stop the operations of Russia? Will Ukraine benefit from this situation, or will it become a victim of the bargaining of the great powers? Thank you for choosing our channel. Pause. We will analyze the situation and give the conclusions in the end of the video. Pause. A lot of events occurred in the world. Let's analyze them. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give a like. That helps us a lot. And leave a comment below where you are watching from. This is very important for the channel's growth. Pause. Please watch the video until the end, because we will present the conclusions at the very end. Okay, now let's move on to the rest of the script. The situation surrounding the conflict in Ukraine has taken a series of twists and turns, involving not just the direct combatants, but also the complex interplay of global powers and their respective agendas. Following Trump's direct threats to Putin, there is now a palpable sense of anticipation as to what comes next. The international landscape is now a tense and ever-shifting terrain. The world watches with bated breath to see how this new dynamic plays out. In the background of this unfolding drama, a question lurks. Is the current trajectory inevitable, or is it merely a temporary phase? Will diplomacy prevail, or will the world descend into deeper chaos? The implications of this complex situation are far-reaching, affecting not only geopolitical strategies, but also the lives of ordinary citizens around the world. The unfolding scenario is no longer just about military might or political dominance. It also brings into sharp focus the global economic system and its inherent vulnerabilities. The threat of sanctions and their potential consequences has thrown the global financial landscape into turmoil, with concerns about inflation, supply chain disruptions, and the possibility of a global recession mounting. The world, therefore, must be aware of the economic undertones and how they might escalate tensions and shape the outcome of the conflict. The decisions made in the coming weeks will not only reshape the geopolitical map, but also redefine the global financial system. This interconnected web reveals how deeply interwoven the world is, and how the fate of a small nation in Eastern Europe has the potential to impact everyone globally. The importance of vigilance and critical thinking is ever more critical now that the information landscape is filled with propaganda and misinformation. The situation in the Ukraine and around it is not only a conflict of nations, but also a contest of narratives and propaganda. Each side involved in this geopolitical battle is attempting to craft a particular narrative to sway both public opinion and global sentiment. In this complex environment, the media plays a critical role. The press can either be an objective source of information or a mere channel for propaganda. Now, more than ever, it is vital that the media operates as a fair and truthful recorder of current events. This situation requires careful analysis, critical thought, and an awareness of the various competing agendas. In the current media landscape, the ability to distinguish between factual information and propaganda is a skill that has become absolutely vital. The responsibility therefore lies on each individual to cultivate a skeptical eye and to seek out a variety of sources to understand the various sides of the complex narrative. The situation calls not only for military analysis and geopolitical strategy, but also for a deep comprehension of the historical roots of the current conflict. The animosities between Russia and Ukraine are not novel, but a continuation of the historical tensions and clashes that go back centuries. A full comprehension of this background allows us to appreciate the complexity of the situation and to avoid simplistic interpretations of the ongoing war. Furthermore, history warns us of the risks of escalation and the importance of diplomacy. We ought to look to history for insight in the way forward. It is in that understanding that we might possibly find a route to a peaceful settlement. As a result, studying history is not simply about the past. It is about understanding the present and laying the ground for a better future. It also brings us face to face with the role of international organizations and their capacity to address complex conflicts. The United Nations, NATO, and other international bodies are currently facing a real test of their relevancy and their efficiency. In the face of a global crisis, the efficacy of such organizations will not only change the course of events, but also reshape how countries interact on the global stage. This ongoing conflict has exposed the weaknesses and the limitations of current international bodies, underlining the need for reforms and the emergence of new methods of international cooperation. The world's dependence on diplomacy will show if it can deliver real solutions and usher in a future where peace and harmony prevails. The events unfolding around the Ukraine war require that we address the humanitarian crises caused by the conflict. Countless people who have been uprooted from their homes and have been forced to face unimaginable horrors deserve our attention, empathy, and help. The duty to defend human rights and provide humanitarian aid transcends political divides. All countries have a moral obligation to assist the victims of war and to pursue an end to the fighting. A commitment to human dignity and universal values is the basis upon which a peaceful and equal world can be built. Now let's take a look at the military aspect of the conflict. The weapons used and tactics implemented are changing the nature of warfare itself. Drones, cyber warfare, and precision-guided weapons are showing how warfare has advanced. A thorough understanding of these innovations is vital to evaluating the capabilities of each side and the potential outcomes of the conflict. The military strategy is not just about weaponry. It involves logistics, intelligence, and the psychological aspects of the combat. The conflict in Ukraine is presenting us with a real-time view of how modern wars are fought and their effects. The development of military technology and the tactical strategies used will have a huge impact on future conflicts. Let's start with the initial stages of Russia's military campaign in Ukraine, which began on February 24, 2022. The Russian military forces launched an invasion from the north, east, and south, employing a mix of ground troops, airstrikes, and missile attacks. The objective appeared to be a rapid takeover of major Ukrainian cities, including the capital city of Kyiv, with the intent of replacing the democratically elected government. In those early days, Russia's military arsenal included sophisticated hardware, such as the T-90 tanks, Su-35 fighter jets, and cruise missiles. The initial phase revealed a strategy emphasizing a large-scale offensive, with the goal of achieving a fast victory. But the Ukrainian forces, using a mix of Soviet-era weaponry and modern systems from their Western allies, held their own. The Ukrainian army employed anti-tank weapons like the NLAW and the Javelin, making it difficult for Russian tanks to advance. The war also showed how important air defense systems like the S-300 can be. Russia's air superiority was challenged by the Ukrainian anti-aircraft defenses, which reduced the impact of the Russian Air Force. Furthermore, the use of drones like the Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 became essential for reconnaissance and attack purposes. The initial offensive ended up becoming a drawn-out conflict, which revealed the deficiencies in Russia's initial invasion plan. As the conflict continued, both sides adjusted their tactics. Russia shifted its focus towards the eastern regions of Ukraine, primarily the Donbass. They increased their use of artillery and long-range missile strikes on Ukrainian cities and infrastructures. In response, Ukraine implemented a defensive strategy based on fortifications, effective usage of anti-tank missiles, and utilizing Western intelligence. The Ukrainian military also utilized drones in cyber warfare. The use of drones such as the Bayraktar TB2 proved vital for surveillance and attacking the Russian military forces. Ukraine's cyber warfare capabilities allowed them to attack Russian communications networks and disrupt Russian military efforts. They also started using more advanced Western-supplied weaponry, which enhanced their combat capabilities. Throughout the course of the conflict, there have been numerous notable battles. The defense of Kyiv was the major initial achievement for the Ukrainian military. The Battle of Kharkiv also showed the determination of Ukrainian troops, slowing down the progress of the Russian forces. The siege of Mariupol was one of the most disastrous battles that showed the humanitarian catastrophe caused by the conflict. The battle for Bakhmut, which went on for months, was a brutal and bloody clash, which resulted in heavy casualties on both sides. Russia's strategy changed to a war of attrition, aiming to exhaust Ukrainian resources and demoralize its troops. Ukraine has started using sophisticated weaponry provided by Western allies, such as the HIMARS multiple rocket system and the Leopard 2 tanks. These advanced systems enhanced Ukraine's power to strike at Russian logistics and command centers. The conflict has seen the deployment of many types of weaponry, including various artillery systems, missile defense systems, and electronic warfare devices. The use of precision-guided munitions became extremely important, resulting in significant damage and loss of personnel on both sides. The war also showed how important logistical supply chains are for sustaining military activities. cyber warfare became a constant element of the conflict. Both sides use cyber attacks to disrupt communications, compromise infrastructure, and collect valuable information. Cyber operations were not always visible, but played an important role in affecting both strategies and the results. Information warfare has also become vital. Both sides are using propaganda and disinformation in order to gain public support and to demoralize their adversaries. The media, both conventional and social, has been an area of constant struggle, where the battle for truth and public opinion is fought. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine is a modern war, showing the integration of all aspects of modern military warfare, including traditional combat, modern technologies, and cyber capabilities. It is a testament to how strategies are constantly adapting and how important it is to be prepared to respond to the new challenges in the 21st century. Pause. So, what can we make of all of this? We will give you the conclusions in the end of the video. Now let's look at the implications of what is happening. This ongoing conflict has far-reaching consequences that impact global diplomacy and international relations, as well as regional dynamics. The war has created a major split in relations between Russia and the West, resulting in a new Cold War-like environment. The tensions have caused divisions within international groups such as the United Nations and NATO, exposing the challenges of collective action and conflict resolution in a multipolar world. The repercussions from these disruptions have been seen in the form of sanctions, trade limitations, and diplomatic isolation, which has caused additional tension and an ever-evolving geopolitical landscape. The conflict has also affected other regional conflicts, causing instability in the Middle East, Africa, and Asia. The increase in geopolitical volatility has forced countries to reassess their alliances and security policies. The risk of regional escalation remains high, highlighting the interconnectedness of global security issues. This new era of heightened geopolitical turbulence demands a reevaluation of current international systems. The sanctions implemented against Russia, including financial restrictions, trade embargoes, and asset freezes, have impacted the Russian economy and have caused changes in global trade patterns and supply chains. This has had an impact on international energy markets, increasing prices and increasing instability in global economies. The economic interdependence between countries and the repercussions of sanctions has revealed the complexity of managing global economic stability during times of conflict. The current economic landscape also shows that there is a requirement for more diversification of supply chains and the need to create resilience within national economies. The war has also highlighted the importance of energy security in the current world. Europe, particularly, has faced enormous pressure due to its energy reliance on Russia. This has prompted a shift towards other energy suppliers and an increased focus on renewable energy sources. The dependence of energy sources on global powers has had a big effect on international relations, causing new alliances and economic realignments. The situation is causing a worldwide shift in the geopolitical structure of energy supplies. The conflict has also exacerbated existing humanitarian crises across the world. The war has created a major refugee crisis, with many Ukrainians fleeing to neighboring countries. The movement of large refugee populations has put strain on the resources of host countries and created additional humanitarian challenges. The situation requires a worldwide coordinated response, with a requirement for more humanitarian aid, refugee protection, and long-term solutions for displacement issues. This situation also reveals the importance of international cooperation and shared responsibility in the face of widespread humanitarian distress. The war has also exposed the vulnerability of the global supply chains. The disruption to the international markets, because of the conflict, has had an enormous impact on global trade and the accessibility of goods. This situation highlights the importance of reliable and diverse supply chains for economic stability and growth. The ongoing difficulties are causing changes in global trade and the development of stronger regional trade agreements. The war has also shown how the modern economy is interconnected and vulnerable to disruptions. The war has also had an impact on global cybersecurity, exposing vulnerabilities and the need for more cyber defenses. Cyber attacks have become a constant in the conflict, targeting governments, infrastructure, and essential services. This requires global cooperation to create a stronger and more secure cyberspace. The continuing rise in cyber warfare underlines the necessity to establish strong and adaptive cybersecurity policies. The conflict has also brought about a new era of space-based assets. Both sides have used satellites for military surveillance, navigation, and communication. The importance of space technology has become a key part of modern warfare, underlining the need for international cooperation and regulation to make sure that space is not weaponized. This has emphasized the potential of using space for both military operations and for civilian and commercial activities, and the need to manage this emerging battlefield. The conflict has also had a big impact on the global information environment. The circulation of propaganda and disinformation has made it more difficult to understand the truth of the situation. The proliferation of such techniques has shown the importance of media literacy and the necessity for more transparency and accountability in media operations. This has shown the importance of a free and impartial media as a vital requirement for a functional and transparent society. The war has also caused a reevaluation of military alliances and strategic partnerships. Many countries have changed their defense policies and are focusing on collective defense and military modernization. The strengthening of traditional alliances, like NATO, and the forging of new partnerships show the changing global strategic environment. The conflict in Ukraine has emphasized the importance of strong military alliances for security and protection. Pause. Okay, let's get to the most critical part. What can we learn from this conflict? The conclusions are coming right now. First and foremost, the conflict serves as a clear reminder of the complexity of global politics. The interactions between countries are impacted by a multitude of factors, including historical backgrounds, economic needs, and security concerns. This complex interaction makes it important to adopt a nuanced and cautious approach to international relations. The importance of international collaboration, diplomatic solutions, and effective conflict resolution cannot be overemphasized. Secondly, the war has emphasized the dangers of overdependence on any one nation. The focus on energy security and the need for more diversified supply chains highlight the risks associated with economic reliance. Countries must strive for self-sufficiency and build strong economic foundations to mitigate the repercussions of global disruptions. A balance of trade partnerships and resource diversification is key to long-term stability and growth. Thirdly, the conflict has underlined the important role of technology in modern warfare. From drones and cyber attacks to precision-guided weaponry, technology is altering the ways in which wars are fought. Countries must continue to invest in both their defensive and offensive capabilities, and to stay ahead of the curve of the latest technological developments. A focus on research and development is vital to securing the nation. Fourthly, the war has revealed the significance of the global information environment. Propaganda, disinformation, and cyber warfare are tools that are being used to manipulate the narrative and to undermine the truth. People must become more media literate to discern between truth and falsehood. Free media and information transparency are absolutely vital to the operation of any democratic society. Fifthly, the war has highlighted the importance of strong global alliances and partnerships. International collaboration is very important when facing global crises and issues. Countries must work together to create strong security architectures and to establish efficient conflict resolution mechanisms. A unified front is the best method to deal with global difficulties. Sixthly, the conflict underscores the significance of humanitarian responsibility. The impact of the conflict on non-combatants calls for a coordinated worldwide response to protect human rights and provide vital humanitarian assistance. This is a moral duty for all that requires empathy, compassion, and swift action. Finally, this situation makes it clear that peace must always be the end goal. War and conflict are not only harmful to the parties in the conflict, but also creates economic disruption, human misery, and global instability. The path toward a peaceful and stable global system relies on open communication, diplomacy, respect, and mutual cooperation. The lessons that we learn from the ongoing war in Ukraine provide us with an important reminder that the world is an interconnected and complex place. The interactions of countries are determined by a combination of historical forces, economic necessities, and security concerns. Navigating this complex web requires a deep understanding of the issues, a careful approach to global interactions, and a renewed commitment to international collaboration and diplomacy. It is with a thoughtful and determined stance that we can work towards a future in which peace and stability prevail. We have to continue to learn from this situation so that we can avoid a repeat in the future. Thank you for your continued support of our channel. We will continue to analyze these and similar events so that we can provide you with as much information as possible. Please do not forget to subscribe and give a like to this video. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you in our next video.